And also, I think it is a little bit deluded to think that we are somehow special and different and more modern and advanced than pre-modern cultures or the pre-modern age, because every age has gone through dramatic upheavals. Every age has seen itself as advancing ahead of the previous age. And sometimes there have been revivals of past eras, but every age has gone through its own modernization or period of modernity. So he says that if we think of modernism as a struggle to make ourselves at home in a constantly changing world, we will realize that no mode of modernism can ever be definitive. Okay, so he's saying that, kind of ironic because he's giving a definition, but he's saying that no definition can be definitive. Anyway, so his definition is that we think of modernism as a struggle to make ourselves at home in a constantly changing world. Yeah. So, but yes, I would say that our sense of uprootedness, and this is what I've addressed in previous videos, our sense of being uprooted and disconnected from our past, our loss of some sense of identity, and again, the topic of identity itself warrants many videos, but for, again, want of a better way of putting it, our loss of identity, our loss of a sense of who we are, apart from just being floating monads in a kind of trash culture, a kind of cheap trash modern day culture, does arise from this sense that the world is changing rapidly. So there's a sense of that we're standing on quicksand. We don't know what is the right way. We don't know how to live, who to be, what is the best approach to life, what is the best approach to existence. And we can see that people are crying out for answers. But one thing that he omits to mention when he says we're trying to make ourselves in a constantly changing world is that who's doing the changing? The world is not just changing by itself. Human beings are changing the world. And so we need to look at who are the human beings who are changing our world? Who are the current designers of the world as we know it today? So the way that Marshall Berman puts it is that we are somehow on the receiving end, kind of passive recipients of these changes that are happening, and we're trying to find our way through these changes. But what he's omitting from this view is that these changes have been actively designed by people, and most often many of those changes have happened because of people seeking profit, industrialization, people seeking profit, people seeking to gain more, get back more for what they put in, production, and to enrich themselves through that. A lot of changes have happened because people want to benefit humanity. So I have full respect for the scientists who have been considering the welfare of humanity and who have sought to improve our lives globally, and who have innumerable inventions by means of which our lives have been transformed. But not all of modernity, or not all of the modern era, is good and beautiful. It's a mix of the good and the bad. So we don't have to accept it all and take it all on unquestioningly and just struggle to find our place in it. I'll just conclude with this one final point from Marshall Berman about the characteristics of modernity, or one of the characteristics of the modern age. So he says that one of the characteristics of the modern age is the importance of communication and dialogue. And he says there may not seem to be anything particularly modern about these activities which help to define the beginnings of civilization, and which were celebrated as primary human values by the prophets and Socrates more than 2,000 years ago. But I believe that communication and dialogue have taken on a new specific weight and urgency in modern times, because subjectivity and inwardness have become at once richer and more intensely developed, and more lonely and entrapped than they ever have before. In such a context, communication and dialogue become both a desperate need and a primary source of delight. In a world where meanings melt into air, these experiences are among the few solid sources of meaning we can count on. So here he's not painting the condition of modernity in an entirely rosy light. He's saying that with this increased individualization and the celebration of the individual, the going within, perhaps even the development of things like psychology, inner analysis and so on, that people are becoming more lonely and more isolated from each other, and then conversely they desperately need that connection. Hence why we see people addicted to social media, that it has answered a primordial need within the human being for that sense of connection and oneness and belonging and brotherhood, which we have lost in a lot of our industrialized cultures, and which other parts of the world are also rapidly losing because their economies are changing. Then he says, in a world where meanings melt into air. Okay, so that's not totally clear what he means by that, but I guess we can say that today people are struggling to understand where meaning lies in society. And again, I'm not talking about the whole world. There are certain societies and communities where they know what's what. They're perfectly fine with what things mean to them. Meanings are not melting into air for them. So meanings are melting into air for people who are living in industrialized or post-industrialized societies that are highly commercialized, that are dominated by entertainment and trash culture. It's in those societies that meanings tend to appear to melt into air. And so he's saying that communication is among the few solid sources of meaning. Okay, well, that's what he's declared. That's what he has put out there as a truth. But do we agree with him? Do we just get meaning from communication? Or are there other sources of meaning? Do the prophets still have something to offer in terms of how we connect to meaning in this day and age? Have we lost a sense of meaning in this day and age because we have lost the knowledge that the prophets came to transmit to humanity? No doubt in the day and age that they were living in, people were also struggling to find meaning. And the prophets came to help to connect us to meaning. Meaning is connected to truth. Truth is transmitted into the material realm via the prophets. And so they help to provide framework for meaning that enables us to understand those meanings. And so this is where I would say that Marshall Berman, as a modern thinker, while he does pay respect to the prophets, is making a categorical statement about how we're all desperately scrabbling for communication because that's one of the few sources of meaning that we have left. Well, that's for people who have departed from the past, the teachings of the past. That's for people who have made this clear distinction and division between past, obsolete, present, make it new. So he is addressing these statements to the very people who have grown up in an environment where the knowledge and wisdom of the prophets has disappeared. Therefore, of course, they're scrabbling around searching for meaning. So this is just a few points that I'm making about what we mean by modernity, and I am referring to Marshall Berman's All That Is Solid Melts Into Air just as a starting point to help us to grasp what we mean by modernity. What are your thoughts on modernity? Please write below this video, and inshallah we will see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.